Okay, so uh, are you ready to like deep dive into this whole TikTok ban thing?
Yeah,
It's gotten a little wild, hasn't it?
it really has.
Like just days before we're supposed to go into effect, things took this like sharp turn, and now we're all kind of like, wait, is TikTok actually getting banned?
Yeah, it is pretty fascinating how quickly things changed.
Yeah.
We had bipartisan support for the ban. President Biden himself, signed the law, and the January 19th deadline was just looming.
Yeah.
And now it seems like the rug's been pulled out from under everybody.
And the lack of like a clear explanation from the Biden administration is making it even more confusing.
Right.
Like, what's the real story here, and what prompted this like last minute shift?
Well, to really understand like the weight of this reversal,
Yeah.
I think we need to go back to the original reasons behind the ban.
Okay.
The core issue was TikTok's Chinese ownership and the potential risks associated with data security.
Right.
There were concerns about how the Chinese government could potentially access user data, which sparked worries about national security on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, and it's not just theoretical
Yeah.
concerns, right?
Right.
Like the source material even mentioned people switching to another Chinese-owned app, Red, as like a potential alternative to TikTok.
Yeah.
It's kind of ironic, to say the least.
The irony is definitely not lost on many users, especially those who are already concerned about data privacy.
Yeah.
It raises a critical question.
Yeah.
If people are truly concerned about data security, does switching from one Chinese-owned app to another actually address the problem?
Right. It kind of feels like jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Exactly.
But back to the Biden administration. What are some of the theories circulating about why they'd reverse course so close to the deadline?
Well, the timing is certainly peculiar.
Yeah.
One theory is that it's an attempt to appeal to younger voters,
Okay.
a demographic that heavily uses TikTok and one where Biden's approval ratings have been historically low. Could this be a play to win back some of that support?
Interesting, because it seemed like there was strong bipartisan agreement on the ban initially.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Ed Markey pushing for a delay.
Yeah.
It seems like there are some like differing opinions emerging within the party itself.
Exactly. And their concerns are centered around the potential impact on influencers' livelihoods
Right.
and the implications for free speech in the digital age.
Yeah.
It highlights the complexity of this issue. Is banning a platform that millions rely on for income and expression really the best solution?
And how does the concept of free speech play into this when we're talking about a private company?
Right.
Like, is this government censorship or something else entirely?
That's a nuanced point that often gets overlooked.
Okay.
There's a distinction between government censorship, which is a direct violation of First Amendment rights,
Yeah.
and platform moderation, which are the rules and policies that private companies like TikTok implement to govern content on their sites. The lines get blurry when you have government pressure influencing those private decisions, which is what we're seeing here.
So we've got potential political motivations, concerns about free speech, and the real-world impact on users, particularly influencers who have built careers on TikTok.
Right.
It seems like former President Trump is also adding to the confusion with his evolving stance on the ban.
Yeah.
Initially, he was a major proponent, but now there's talk of him softening his stance.
Interesting.
What's going on there?
This brings us to another layer of complexity.
Oh.
Some speculate that Trump's shift might be influenced by potential connections with tech figures who are attending his upcoming inauguration. There's even talk of possible deals being made behind the scenes.
It sounds like there's a lot more at play here than just data security concerns.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're peering into this tangled web of political maneuvering, corporate interests, and individual lives caught in the crossfire.
It's a messy situation for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts.
It is. And while these high-level discussions are happening, it's easy to forget about the individuals who are directly affected by this uncertainty.
Yeah. It's easy to get lost in like the political drama and the corporate maneuvering, you know? But at the end of the day, this is impacting real people's lives.
Yeah.
I was talking to a 13-year-old the other day who practically lives on TikTok.
Oh, wow.
And they were completely freaked out about the potential ban,
Yeah.
not really knowing what they'd do if the app disappeared.
That anecdote really brings home the human element of this situation.
Right.
For millions of users, especially younger generations, TikTok isn't just an app. It's an integral part of their social lives, a source of entertainment, and even a platform for creative expression.
Right.
This ban throws all of that into question.
And it's not just teenagers either.
Right.
The source material mentioned people who left their jobs in traditional media to pursue full-time careers as TikTok influencers.
Well,
If the platform goes away, They're essentially losing their livelihoods.
The economic ramifications are significant.
Yeah. And they extend beyond individual creators.
Right.
Businesses that have invested in TikTok for marketing and advertising are also facing a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
What happens to those investments if the platform disappears?
It's a valid point. TikTok has become a major player in the digital economy,
Yeah,
and a sudden ban would send shockwaves through various industries.
for sure.
It makes me wonder if there are any potential alternatives or contingency plans in place for users of businesses who rely so heavily on TikTok.
That's the million-dollar question right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we going to see TikTok disappear from app stores this Sunday?
Right.
Will there be some kind of 11th hour deal to save it?
Yeah.
Or are users going to have to scramble to find new platforms to build their audiences and businesses on?
It's hard to say for sure. The source material mentioned that TikTok's CEO is planning to attend President Trump's inauguration
Oh, okay.
and has been publicly praising him.
Interesting.
Do you think that could have any bearing on the situation?
It's certainly an interesting development. Could this be a strategic move on TikTok's part to curry favor and potentially influence a decision in their favor?
Right.
Or is it simply a matter of a business leader navigating a complex political landscape?
It does add another layer of intrigue to this already convoluted situation.
Right.
This whole saga has really exposed the fault lines in how we approach technology data privacy and the role of government in regulating online spaces.
Absolutely. It's a wake-up call to the intricate challenges we face in a world that's becoming increasingly interconnected.
Right.
The decisions made about TikTok will have ripple effects far beyond the app itself, impacting the future of social media and our digital lives as a whole.
It's a stark reminder that these issues aren't just abstract political debates happening in some far-off realm.
Yeah.
They have very real consequences for individuals, businesses, and even global relations.
And it underscores the need for a more thoughtful, informed approach to decision-making in this space.
Yeah.
One that considers all stakeholders involved, users, businesses, governments, and tech companies, and prioritizes transparency and accountability.
So where do we go from here? Even if the ban is delayed, or somehow avoided the questions it's raised about data security and national security, and the power dynamics of the digital age aren't going away.
Yeah, it feels like we're at like a crossroads.
Yeah.
Like this TikTok situation could set a precedent for how other social media platforms are treated, you know? Could they face similar scrutiny and potential bans down the line?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
This case could definitely become a blueprint for future actions against tech companies,
Right.
particularly those with ties to foreign governments. It raises a lot of questions about the global reach of national regulations in our increasingly digital world.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where do we draw the lines when it comes to data security and national interests in the context of like a globalized internet?
Right. And it makes you wonder where like we, the users, fit into all of this, you know?
Right.
Are we just caught in the middle pawns in a bigger game being played by governments and tech giants?
That's a question we all need to be asking.
We need to become more aware of how our data is being collected, used, and potentially shared, you know? We can't just passively accept the terms and conditions without understanding the implications.
Yeah.
We have to start demanding greater transparency and control over our digital lives.
But it can feel overwhelming trying to stay informed.
Right.
There's so much information out there, and it's hard to separate fact from fiction, especially in a situation as fluid and politically charged as this one. You know,
Yeah.
how do we even begin to navigate this complexity?
You're right. It's a lot to process.
Right.
That's why it's more important than ever to hone our critical thinking skills. You know, we
Right.
can't just take everything we hear at face value.
Right.
We need to question assumptions, look for evidence, consider different perspectives, and engage in informed discussions like this one.
This deep dive has definitely been an eye-opener. From the initial bipartisan support for the ban to the sudden reversal, the political maneuvering, and the human stories at the heart of it all, it's been quite a ride, and it seems like we're just at the beginning of a much larger conversation.
This entire situation with TikTok, as confusing and uncertain as it is forcing us to confront some crucial questions.
Yeah.
What does the future of social media look like? How do we balance data privacy with freedom of expression in an increasingly interconnected world? These are questions that each of us will need to grapple with as we navigate this evolving digital landscape.
So much food for thought. This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping us unpack this complex situation.
It was my pleasure, and to our listener, I'll leave you with this thought. What do you think this means for the future of social media and data privacy in an increasingly interconnected world?